Okay, I neglected to record a whole bunch of stuff that you all should have heard. Brian, who is new to the podcast today, but certainly not new to the tribe, showed up and he was sharing some information that he just needed to get out. In retrospect, I'm sure that it's the kind of thing that happens to others. He lives in a relatively remote part of Michigan and has had some similar to a story like 2 weeks ago where we had heard Michaela's friend, I think, was it Christina? Dang it. If I remember her name, I will do it justice. But she was someone who had an awareness of some gifts that she had, an awareness of other stuff beyond herself when she was young. And then there was a period where it just stopped. And now, a little further along the road, all of a sudden that's been restored. And Brian was telling us a story that was similar to that. Then he had some contact with nature in different ways, had interactions with owls that was unusual, and red fox that was unusual, and had seen things in the sky that was unusual. And there was a period of time where he saw it, and then it stopped. And here we are again. So, welcome. Um, One day you'll get to share that again so that others that are experiencing similar circumstances will hear what you had to say, and you'll find commonalities. I'm not saying everybody's journey is going to happen that way, and when you see an owl it means this, but it certainly makes you wonder when that synchronicity repeats itself, and then you find some more meaning to it because I, there is more right now with what we're going through and the changes that are taking place in our consciousness and Earth's consciousness. There's a little bit more awareness that opens up all the time. And every avenue that higher aspects can find to communicate with us, they're going to take advantage of it right now. They're trying to get our attention quickly so that we vibrate at levels where Earth is going. That's what all of this communication is about. It's in preparation for where a new Earth is going, and we have no control over that. All we can do is prepare ourselves for it, and the only thing you can do to prepare is just make sure your vibration's high enough so when she flips, you match it. So that's kind of where we're in the middle of. Before I talk about anything else, I want to give Brian an opportunity to speak a little bit more. And then, Paul and Irene showed up, and I know that they always have something to offer. So, Brian, is there anything else you want to start with?
Well, I guess the latest, I've been listening to some of your material podcasts. You've talked about a light shift. And I mentioned earlier we were talking about my buddy on the fire department had passed. And I had my happy place that I like to kayak. And I would hit it a few times a week back in, say, 1990 or 2019, 2020. And I had invited that guy to go with me a few times. And so we were going this often. So I considered him a kayak buddy. Like when I was going, I'd say, I'm going to meet you, I can meet you there. And he'd tell me whether you could meet me there. I'd throw an extra kayak in the vehicle. And so the last text I had sent to him was a night he couldn't make it there. And as I was paddling in, as the sun rays through this, it was just a light spectrum of like a starburst through it and these little blue orbs. And it was mainly lens flare, I would imagine, when I was taking it, but I knew it made a cool picture. And I texted that to him and I said, look what you're missing, kind of thing. I was chiding him a little bit. And that was, we hit winter time. Next spring, he ended up with COVID and passed. So that was my last text to him, about the thing. And then every time I would go kayaking there the next year, it just sucked the joy out of that place. Because as I said, it was my happy place. So I didn't really go much last year. This year I went one time this spring and had that same feeling when I went, didn't go. It's maybe 3 weeks ago. I'm at my house. I'm doing something out in the barn, and I look up. The sky's beautiful. It's a beautiful evening, and there's a rainbow over the top of my house, but it was the direction of where my happy place, right? And I thought, I got to go. And I threw the kayak in the truck and I took off, and it's 5 minutes away. And I got out there, and the sky was, I've never seen the place look so magical. And you've talked of as above, so below. I don't even understand what all this really means, but you could not tell where the sky, and it was bizarre. I'll send you some pictures that it looked like it was some weird portal. And I have seen stuff there when I was kayaking for in the sky in years past, but it was the most magical, surreal night of paddling. And since then, I've noticed like rainbows regularly, not full rainbows, but I'll just see the light spectrum in the clouds. And I have no idea how that's related, and if there's some shift taking place that I'm just realizing it. But I'm just in like normal clouds, I'll see that it's a pastel graduation of the light spectrum that I've never noticed in my life before. So that's just what I'll add to that.
My perception of that is you only get to experience things at the vibration level that you've achieved. You are talking about things in, optic and, oral um, scales that the rest of us either can't see or don't pay attention to. But when it's just you in nature out there, well, the setting's ideal for you to be able to accept that kind of thing. But there's another reason why you repeatedly get that sensation out there. When there was a period where you just couldn't face it, didn't want to deal with it, think about what your vibration was like during that. It was low, wasn't it? Really
Oh, I,
dense, and
I
you
did
just
not
you
feel
couldn't
well.
find the way to crawl out of that to go appreciate it. But
Yep.
when you explained, I mean, I could almost see the sunshine and the light components in what was around you when you went the last time and experienced rainbows and things that are beyond typical senses.
Yep.
Kudos to you.
It's a better way to live.
For sure. It's, in my opinion, it's where we're going.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of density that we're, mucking through. It's it's not that my recommendation for people is to raise your vibration, so that your effort will change the world. I can't deny it doesn't have an impact, but that's not how it works. You're just practicing to live within this sphere in your own joy, and that in effect will have an effect on the collective. But that's not what's driving the changes in the shift that's coming. Earth is on her own path. She's got her own consciousness to deal with, and we're in the middle of that. Any day it could flip just like that. Just watch the solar conditions if you want evidence of the things that are going on, and listen to all the earthquakes that you hear about every day, hundreds of them all over the planet. Here is the physical manifestation of that energy that's coming and adjusting the planet. Oh, it's happening. So all we can do is just prepare humanity for the vibration levels that she's going to achieve. Just be there on the same page and everything will be cool. But man, um, third dimension's not given up easily. So who else has an observation? Go ahead.
Sure. This is so great, Brian. You're sharing your story because it's so all encompassing about what's truly unfolding, and it's truly about reconnecting. Work that we're truly interconnected, and that animals do have messages, and you notice it. You notice there's something to this owl. You notice that there's something to this fox. So that's where you start to relate, right? And I feel when I listen to you, I can feel actually that you're already knowing what you're questioning. But it's kind of we're not used as human beings to communicate, to accept or acknowledge that we truly are already communicating. That's kind of making you doubting, or making like, hey, this is happening to me, but I just know that you know deep inside that this is your true, like what you're saying, it's your happy place. And to me, if you like to know what my observation is, just take it for what it is, because I really start to see more and more um, um, like an owl, even though it may have another meaning to somebody else, an owl has a certain geometric shape. You know, it has so with that, it can express a certain essence, it has a certain function. So I truly believe that there is a universal message that an owl has. So it can be specific to you, but there is also like, once an owl shows up, it has a general same message for everybody else, like the fox. And I feel you're tapping into that. And to me, it's kind of really confirming, because what does the owl stand for you?
Yeah, Mike Cleland has I've heard him describe it as he spent all this time researching the owl and what it meant. And under a hypnosis session, he asked someone to ask him what it meant. Because he's like, what is this? My whole life has been poured into this owl. And he said, it's fascinating to hear him recant it, but it's that he responds, the owl isn't important. The owl is merely a sign on the door. What is important is the door. So I think the owls, the fox, the blue jays that I've seen, it, it's just a reminder that there is a door, that we need to be looking at the door. And whether we're able to get through the door yet, I don't know if we can get through it in this form at all, but I think it's to draw our attention to the door. So don't get caught up in the owl, or because it's easy to do, or the signs that we're seeing, but it's the door. So I guess that's where we're at with it.
Yeah. And where is the door for you?
Um,
How do you how do
the
you
door is
access?
just, oh, I don't know if we can access it yet. I don't know. Maybe we can get through the door, or maybe that's in this form, in our form we are right now. I could be, or it's just letting us know. It's just a reminder to me that we are so much more. See, I thought we were our brain for all these years. I would have argued that we were our brain, and when your brain's dead, you're dead. Just because you could change your personality so much by, you know, a lobotomy, right? You scramble the prefrontal lobe, and the person's not the person. So of course, that how could you go on? So that was my argument for years, that we were our brain. I would pull up on, conscious, not conscious. That's the medical assessment. But I kind of, luckily, I had experiences as a kid way back when with OBEs and stuff like that. That has sort of, even though I was able to shove it in a box and put it away and hide it, it all comes back out and makes it more easy for me to accept now, because it's like, yeah, I've been there, did that. You know what I mean? So, and then again, that goes back. I'm sure you guys have talked about it before. Some of the things we think are traumas that induce some of these things were actually our gift, right? Like my OBEs were during those things as a kid, right? But then it would be like, yeah, it's so helpful now. So there's good and bad in all these things.
They're all lessons,
Yeah.
really. If you understand what we're doing here in the way that I do, and that I've been through other past lives and I have incarnations, and I choose my soul contract and the terms when I come back to another incarnation. I pick the lessons I'm coming to learn because I'm here representing spirit, source, God. My
Yeah.
job is to help it learn more about itself. So my lessons are new and unique. And in order for me to understand the contrast between the good stuff and the bad stuff, I have to experience them both. So, they're never mistakes. the things that we categorize as wrong in our little duality experiments here, is erroneous when we look at it that way. In order for us to understand the good aspect of that lesson, which on my journey was unique to me and all the things that led up to it, just like everybody else, here is a my marker. It's not meant to be a marker for anybody else. You weren't on this journey. You didn't do all the things that led up to this for this to play itself out the way that it did. But there are similarities in the tribe. When you see other tribe members, gifts begin to display themselves. And some of that is in discernment of the lessons we went through. That's what you get to share with the collective in the end. Oh, yeah, it's going to deposit itself in your Akashic records permanently. And when you're done, all of that information serves the collective. So, again, like I said before, thank you for the lessons you had to learn on my behalf, and you're welcome for the shit I had to go through. So, that's the nature of this 3D experiment here. But Earth is done with 3D experiments. We're done. She's crawling out of this particular dimension and ascending into the next one. And the next one doesn't deal with duality anymore. We're there. We'll have those situations, but we have the wherewithal that we understand what the law of one really means and how we're connected to everybody else. And that when we make mistakes, watch what the tribe does when they come together. And the specialist who understands that particular situation takes care of it on behalf of everybody else. I can't wait to get there. And there are signs that it's accelerating, and then there are other days when it just seems like we're just kind of stuck in this place. Nonetheless, time doesn't necessarily march on. Timelines are just opening up for us to better understand what's going on. And when we see it around us with others, now you know that it's more real than we thought it was. And when we hear about new people coming across our paths that are having similar circumstances, then you really can't deny anymore that something is happening that we can't deny anymore. So I'll stop for a moment and let somebody else respond.
Yeah, I can share a little more about what I can feel is happening when you have these type of encounters, or no matter no matter what. If I look back now, there are reminders. It's more alive than other things in my life, and to me, it feels it opens something up in me. Like I can share, like I've seen gnomes as well in my life. As a child, I believed in them, but I never saw them. I was so upset. It's like, why? I know you're somewhere out there, and like, why can't I see you? I was so upset. Now, later on, I realized I had to go through that. I just needed to trust and not have everything visible, because I needed to learn to be how it is to be human, like among other people who don't believe in things like that. And I forgot about it, and I was kind of like rebellious, like, no, that's a that's a that's a stupid idea. I want to see everything now. Anyway, but it was only very funny enough. Uh, the moment my friends from Mount Shasta, they offered me a job there, and I was deciding if I wanted to take the job or not. And I was actually really wanting to go, but there's a wanting of desire, but if it's truly aligned or not, that's a different thing. And I really, to me, I didn't want to make any mistakes. It felt like this time I want to do it right. I don't know where that comes from. I felt like there was like a big tragedy sometime at some moment happened, and this time I want to do it, or I may want to make the right choices. Somehow that was deeply imprinted in me. And so no matter what, if I need to jump from something, I'll do it. If that's what's supposed to be happening for the greater good of all, and for me, I would just do it. Um, anyway, but so I was just working in an office, and I was really like going back and forth. Shall I go travel to Manchester and go there or not? And I felt like I was kind of like mocking about my life being in this crazy office. And there were plans there. And I was just really going about my thing being there. Uh, but also at the same time, I also had dreams about when I would dream, I would see portals where I would live, and there would be portals to down to the earth, but also going up. And it happened to be very funnily enough that somehow I happened to work in exactly those offices that are exactly in my dreams in those portals. Anyway, I've kind of forgot about those things because anyway, but looking back, things start to make sense. And so I was going in the office doing my thing, and all of a sudden I hear like poof. It's like, what's that? And I look behind me, and there's these big plants, that nobody is allowed to touch because they're leased, and somebody, put the water in it, and that's it. It's so like not natural to me anyway, but it's a plant. I mean, it's still alive. And here this gnome jumps down, and he's just looking at me like this, kind of like talking to me like, hey, kind of like you're why are you know who you are, don't mess with us, we're doing our job here, kind of like don't make any judgment about some pristine place else, you're true, so don't go against your own truth, you know so are you going to accept who you are and that you what you know or not? It's like, and then he poof disappeared again. And it was so funny because I really like there's this seriousness to it, but also this fun part to it that made it so like, wow, here's a big lesson learned, about me judging about and my knowing and then still judging myself like maybe I still want to. And then I really made a choice to not leave. And I just knew I just need to be here to 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 be expand the consciousness or whatever that means. I don't even know, but I trust that wherever I am, that's exactly where I need to be. And it became so honoring my job. I started to see everything so much different from this little creature. And it's not even about the creature, but it was sharing what I already know from within. And that's really, and it's also like accepting. You can wave it away, but somehow the message still got through and it will unfold anyway. And so, yeah, that's been really, 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 really cool, actually. And so it's the same with like what you're saying, you're seeing the light. It just takes some time for our human heart to start to readjust to it. And there's a there's a beauty to it that it may take some time, you know? So yeah. But it's so beautiful that how amazing our body truly is, that we can receive light from the stars, from a mountain, from other worlds, uh, but also to not be overwhelmed. And exactly, it's so exact. It's not like the teacher you're in school and everybody needs to learn exactly the same thing. No, we're in this beautiful school of life where whatever you're seeing is exactly meant like hello, you keep on repeating it, but it's so beautiful. It's exactly meant for you. It's your teaching, it's your intimate connection with who you are. It's exactly showing something for you. So, but also like what you're saying, Brian, about you saw like light or like UFOs in a place where you feel like you even question it. Does it have something to do with emotions because something would happen? So there's also something very um, um, it's I don't want to say like a warning, but you were witness to something very pristine, and it's also related to you. It's showing something to you.
Mhm.
Uh, you were needing to see that because it has a message for you as well. So you receive the confirmation. in a way, the unfoldment of it. So there's a story to it for you as well, why you needed to see that. And you are in a human form. Whatever is not in a human body is not able to have like a true influence, an effect on this physical reality. So for you to be in that place where you saw things, you were able to transmit it through your body. So you play a role in that, like everybody else plays a role in. And we, we can have effect wherever, or where from wherever uh, physicality or form or shape we have. But we, through our physicality in human form, we have a very pristine role to play. This is where it becomes amazing, where we start to be able to play or work together with our lineages, where we are originating from, or who we work with through our lineages. Not only our lineages from our human experience, but maybe from other places. Or maybe you don't even have a humanoid spirit. It's possible. We can, anyway, maybe that's a bit too far. But I just want to
Yeah,
plant
we're
some
starting to
seed.
drift into starseeds, which is an interesting conversation to have. Um, but that assumes that there's been a foundation of understanding already laid, and we're getting off on subjects that are, we would consider them more esoteric if I had to label them, and not within everybody else's realm.
No. So
Which is probably a good place for me to insert this little tidbit. Dave and I have been going back and forth on Dave Wallace about the things that we know we were put here to do, and how to assist the tribe in coming to terms on what's going on with them as well, and how it affects everybody in the midst of what's going on.
yeah.
It's been comfortable for us to be in this pod of tribe that showed up, because they all get it. They all vibrate at this level, and they're open to ideas about things that they haven't experienced yet. We know that there's an entire other, more vast pool of human beings out there that don't get it at all, don't have a clue yet. And so it was never our focus to worry about reaching the masses. That when the day came, they would find us in the way that everybody else kind of came along. And, if they vibrated at the right level, they would participate. Well, something's happened. Dave and I were aware as of a week ago, Thursday, that there had been officers within 3-letter government agencies that have been watching our podcasts and listening to what's been going on. They are finally coming into experiences within their jobs, shall we say, where they're beginning to have to understand more and more about what it's going to be like to actually encounter and have communications with extraterrestrials, because we certainly have. They have a limited amount of information on what's happening dimensionally, vibrationally, within inner Earth. And so they're getting to a point where they need to know. It's part of their job, as their task is, to be aware of what's going on, but they're not getting any information from their superiors. And they're not getting any information from within, the people that they know. So who have they begun to watch? They're looking for real experiencers that can begin to help them. So I'm aware of 2 other instances in the past where, I'm going to say it, CIA officers showed up in Dave's pie shop. Way early, it was for him to cease the things that he was talking about. because he had put a lot of video and photographs up. I believe it was on YouTube, and one day it was just all gone. Doesn't have it anymore. It's just you can't even rebuild the information he's lost. Then there was another time, I want to say 2 years ago, when they showed up, and they just were informing him of the things that he could and couldn't talk about. And that time it seemed like they weren't there to clamp it down as much. This time, this last time, Dave has been drawing, new people in that have had experiences, that would love to sit down with the guy and exchange the information. And a lot of these people are retired military. He's certainly, I mean, they're in his wheelhouse. They're people that his family, has known, and he's lived in that part of California. You certainly interact with them. And so when they realize, what Dave's experiences have been, they want to sit down with them. It was one of those instances where he was going to meet with one of these people, and the CIA officer had followed this other person to find Dave. He knew about phone calls Dave has made to upper echelon leadership in the Air Force and at some of the air bases, because Dave's known these people for a long time. He's certainly, because of his experiences in physics and what he's been sharing with his friends at SpaceX and NASA. I mean, they're aware that Dave's connected to some things, and you can tell that there's two schools of thought on what Dave's been talking about and what he's been given. It seems like the older echelon in the physics community see the formulas that Dave's been shared, and when he shows it to them, they go, yeah, that's really pretty. And then you see the younger ones who see beyond that and go, God, you're onto something here. What is this? You can see the old narrative was what science dollars got the conclusions that they were going to tell you. And then you got the real curious ones who can see beyond that and see that this isn't normal. And when you listen to Dave talk, he speaks about physics at a level that you have got to have a mastery of it to understand where he goes. I mean, I have a pretty fundamental understanding of physics and I always enjoyed it, but there comes a point, I can conceive what he's saying. But boy, what he's been given is way beyond my capacity right now, but you know that it's true. And so this last time this officer showed up is when he admitted, look, we just want to know the truth. There's a lot more of us that we just don't know who to trust. They don't trust the other agencies at all. And so where can they actually get some information that they can find that, they can do something with? Because it's not like these people aren't having their own awakenings at the same time. They're humans, just like the rest of us. So we decided that we were going to do a podcast. It was going to deal with just that. So Thursday was the first day that we did David Wallace Star Chat. And he started to lay out things in very plain language, called out some things that needed to be called out. And that's what he's going to continue to invite those people. It wasn't that we were going to shirk away when we found out that the CIA might be listening to our podcasts. No, you're human beings like the rest of us. You need to know. So we invited them. Dave reached out to, his friends that he knew in all those agencies and invited them to the podcast. A few of them I knew were in it because there were 6 people in the room. We'll see how many of them, respond to it after. But Dave's going to do this every Thursday now for a while. And this is his forum to begin to speak to things that people need to hear. And who knew that we were going to help educate, inform, people working in the government? I certainly didn't see that. I knew that there would be uninitiated that would come along the way that I would be able to help, but I didn't see it coming this way. So I was Thursday, he just nailed it. In an hour, he said all the things that need to be said and set a foundation, um, for what's to come. The people at those levels are going to start to realize contact with extraordinary things, and they just need to find a source of somebody that they could trust to talk about it. And the only way you're going to do that is not by listening to a newscaster. So the Michael Salas of the world, that's not the resource. You want to find people that have had real experiences, and those are the ones that we want to speak to. It was no coincidence that Dave and my path crossed. And we have our own lanes. What I can tell you about Beyond Earth Sentience is what Dave has shared with me. I, to date, have not had those experiences myself. So I don't pretend that I know about that, in the same way that I can speak at great length about visiting Telos and inner earth properties. I can speak to that all day. That's my wheelhouse. I don't suggest that I know more about any of the rest of it until it's revealed to me, but I don't pretend to know about more of it either. And that was part of what we saw when we got into this community, that all of a sudden, when people would hear a new subject, all of a sudden they were expert on that too. Well, I don't know that any of us are expert in all those things that you think that you are. Just stay in your own lane. And that's the wisdom that we want to count on. So then you can begin to really see whose opinions and attitudes are shaded by their ego, and those that, are open to other things. It's very transparent to me, that lots of people in this community that I've been involved in now for 3 or 4 years, you can tell they have had some experience, some profound experience, and it changed their perception of things. And as things went along, their ego got in the way. So they either wanted to be well known by doing it, or they wanted to turn it into an enterprise, and this was gonna make me a lot of money. And those things just muddle the message. Now, that's not to say that you should be compensated for your time, but when your focus and the outcome is financially how I'm going to benefit, then you really don't benefit from the wisdom that you've been given in the first place. And it doesn't really go anywhere. And it becomes apparent to others when you hear them talk. I'm very sensitive to that. I'm all about people understanding and taking back their sovereignty. If we all did that, the earth wouldn't be in the mess that it's in right now, because we're not looking for other leaders who have been corrupted along the way, and that was never going to stop, for making decisions on our behalf. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. So you can listen to Dave's on Thursdays. They're at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and he's opened these up on Zoom. So if somebody wants to participate in real time, they absolutely can. And then the replays will be available. But we can tell there's going to be a more basic initiate level of people that are coming around that aren't as tuned in and may not have had these experiences. But somebody's got to help them. Sooner or later, they're going to have interactions in their official capacities with beings like that. And part of our wish is so that when you experience something for the first time, when we have been conditioned by the word UFO and alien in the movies and television on what to expect, we somehow have got to prevent you from freaking out the first freaking time you see these beings, because they're going to be different. Our experience is that none of them are malevolent. They're all benevolent and here to assist us. Really stop and think for a moment the technology and the wisdom that these beings have at their disposal. And if they wanted to invade us or do something malevolent, they would have done it long ago, but they haven't. More and more experiences of people coming into contact with that kind of phenomenon. You keep hearing about it all the time, and it's accelerating like crazy. I believe that all of these things are being done on humanity's behalf to prepare them for the next level that we're crawling into. I'm convinced it's happening within my lifetime, and I'm a chip shot away from 70 years old. So it's going to happen soon. Every time I watch solar phenomenon and I hear about another catastrophe on the surface, it reminds me a lot of what happened back in Atlantis. You know, you can line up all the things that led up to that point where destruction had been done because nuclear type weapons had been misused. And we demonstrated finally to the rest of the universe what humanity could do and destroy parts of the earth like that. That is when outside influence finally stepped in because humanity was hands off. They were meant to learn how to evolve on their own until we decided that we were going to destroy planets that didn't belong to us. That in our little 80 to 100-year lives, we could do such damage that reverberate through the universe and over lifetimes. And that wasn't what we were meant to leave behind. So, you know, we're getting assistance from other places. And I'm not saying that humanity is a lost cause. No one believes that, because there are certainly planets like this that have started out before and the universe has just started over. We've all been told along the way that this isn't one of those instances, that there is great support for humanity and that there are great wishes for it to do well. But we had been manipulated along the way. And, you know, we have to deal with the residue that's been left over for that at the same time while Earth has gone through her own cosmic cycle of her own. That's a lot to keep track of. So, you know, not everybody sees that that's part of the space I'm holding. One day you'll be glad I am holding it so somebody can speak to you intelligently about what is going on so that we understand it before it's too late. So that's enough of a soapbox for me today. That's about an hour. Good. Anything else you want to add before we begin again? I would recommend, if you want to start to hear things from Dave's perspective, and I love to hear Dave. His tone of voice is great, and what he has to say is always spot on. He's going to continue to talk about things directly, you know, not candy coated on Thursdays, and we'll continue to do these on Saturday mornings. These are still designed for tribe to show up and participate, because, you know, we have an awareness of these extraordinary things that are going on, and, you know, we're not inviting people here that couldn't understand what we're talking about. Dave's is a shot across the bow for everybody out there, but it needed to be done. And when we stopped thinking, you know, if it wasn't Dave and I, then who else would do it? And I don't know, because I don't know anybody else that's been through what we've been through. And you had to come to terms with it first so that I understood what it was. And then I took a long time to decide whether I was going to be willing to talk about it or not. I'd be just as happy to shut up and never talk about this again, and just, you know, I'll benefit from it in the long run. But I wasn't sent here to do that. I got lots of Lemurian family that's here, and, you know, family beyond that need to just kind of be guided along the way. I'm not here to steer anybody's journey because I wish it to be unique and your own. Some gift you have is not like mine, that's going to be in demand sooner or later. And I wish for you to figure out what that is on all our behalf. Everybody's got their own. So I'm delighted that the tribe that showed up has been supportive all this time. But I sense that Dave and I are going to step into some areas where the people aren't quite so open and maybe a little more judgmental about the things that we have to talk about. So that's our cross to bear. We'll see. You know, we put as much energy toward things that we want to get out of in return. And if people don't vibrate, then we send them love and light and send them on their way. But, you know, we're not going to spend any more of our attention there because there are 8 billion people on the planet that are all going to feel this sensation one way or the other. And we're all looking for touchstones that we can talk about it with. If it had to be, if our help was going to be with government agencies that have some influence over the narrative that's being shaped for everybody else, because of course, the government and the military wants you to see things from their perspective. They want to control the narrative. You can't do that with anybody. The first thing that really came to me when I began to have these multidimensional experiences is nobody can stop that. No one can tell you don't step into the next realm. How do you stop it? You can't. And so when it happens with more than just a handful of people, you really can't keep a lid on it anymore. I'm surprised when I hear, and my narrative is different from lots of others because I'm not spending time on secret space programs and I'm not focusing on abductions. You know, whether or not those things happen, who am I to say? It's probably likely that they did, but I understand that where I put my focus is what I get back in return. So my attention goes on the positive aspects of things that I see. And over the last few years, that kind of manifestation works for me. It works. There's something better coming. I sense it, and more people are showing up that validate that for me. So when you show up, it just gives me comfort because there are others that see this where the majority still don't yet. And, you know, we'll see if our light shines enough for others to see. Clearly it does because y'all saw mine and showed up. Here we are. So, anything else before we finish? Brian, thank you for showing up today.
Yeah, well, thanks for being there. I appreciate that there's this forum, and I appreciate that people here aren't at it for profit because that discredits it. You see so much, there's information out there, and somebody's got something to sell, and it just devalues it to me. We're all here to raise us all up. We're all right. We're sharing this. It's like I'm amazed, and we want everyone to lift with it, right? Not I got something to sell you that's special. Yeah, you see way too much of that. I can't imagine. Like, why is that important at this point? So, at least me, you know, we're old folks now. I guess I have to consider myself an old folk now, right? Maybe as a kid, you're in a different stage of your life. I don't know. But yeah. So, yeah. And Dave did a great job of explaining things. I watched that video last night of his, because it'd be way too easy for him to talk over us, you know, impress us with ego and I feel like bullshit when people go that way because it's another language. I don't understand it. What he presented was fantastic. What I watched last night.
It makes me happy to hear you say that. I was very proud of it all. At the level that I vibrate, Dave said the things that needed to be said. It's what we all need to hear. So thank you. He'll hear this later, and I'm sure he'll be delighted. But I'll pass it along anyway. Thank you. Irene, any last thoughts from you, my dear?
Yeah, yeah. A lot comes up with all the sharing, and I feel, yeah, I feel especially people who may be in military or in government, they serve such a unique, specific role at this time, and I can really see how it can put a lot of pressure also on these people, maybe especially right now, because a lot is changing. And then if you feel your responsibility, have had an oath or you pledged something, and you identify completely with it, you feel massively responsible to protect and to take care. And I feel this is where it becomes so important to have deep respect for one another, and to really start to trust, despite whatever's going on, that there is a natural unfoldment taking place, where you have to really start to feel within your heart like you're not the only one. Surrender to your choice of being born now at this time, to choose a certain role. But I feel it's at the same time, it's really important to start to feel you have a pristine role to play that may be even beyond your pledge. What I mean with that is in order to understand what's going on and to be of service through this process, maybe just allow to kind of sink it in that first and foremost, you are a human being, and you're deeply connected with your inner intuition, which is at an inner life stream which connects all of us together. And I feel that gives you a kind of a guideline in decision making. And sometimes it may be completely going against what you're being taught, and that's really difficult. But just trust that this life force can do is navigating you to. That's why you feel drawn to people now. Like, it's limited, so you already feel something is limited, it's not making sense. That's exactly your intuition opening up. And so be open for the greater good of all, that you may become aware of things that may be completely counter to what you have been promised, and that's okay. You don't need to feel guilty if that's the case. It's part of surrendering, and it's part of an unfoldment that's just amazing and pristine. We all don't truly know the outcome, but I know the feeling. And that to me is just beautiful. And that feeling is what connects us, and that supports us truly through everything. So I hope that makes a bit sense and gives a bit of comfort to everybody.
It does.
Basically.
Thank you. That's a perfect way to describe how feeling that sense beyond our five physical human senses, that's where we pinpoint these connections to others. That's the ether that we know is there, that can't describe. Here it is. It's really what binds us all together. Well, Dave's going to talk more about time, light, gravity, and sound, and how when you understand what binds all those together, you can influence them. Yes. Well, he knows what binds them all. It's consciousness. And so get ready for that discussion, because it's coming soon.
Exactly.
So I'm going to leave it there so you have something to look forward to. And, Dave gets it. So I love it when he shares, because, man, I resonate with everything that he brings to the table. And it's just like one more door opened up of information that we knew before. We just have access to it again. I love it when people just show up and just kind of fill in the gaps for me. And that's what the tribe is meant to do. They're not meant to tell us in their journeys so that we replicate their journeys. They show us the things that we were supposed to recognize for our own particular journeys when our paths crossed. So we all came along because we were supposed to sort each other out. And thanks for showing back up. So I'm going to call it a day. We'll see you here next Saturday, and tune in for Dave on Thursday nights as well, because there's lots of stuff coming there. All right. Have a great day today, gang. Take
Thanks so
care.
much.
Mhm.